The storm didn't fall over the Alaskan base. It attacked it. Wind slammed against reinforced windows with a force that made the glass shudder in its frame. Snow didn't drift, it tore sideways through the air like shards of ice. Outside, visibility had dropped to almost nothing. Inside, the military hospital ran on backup power, humming with strained electricity and quiet tension. The ER was small, understaffed, and already stretched too thin. Emma stood near the medication counter, reviewing a chart that didn't need reviewing. Her eyes weren't on the paper. They were listening to footsteps, to tone, to the subtle rhythm of a place that told you when something was about to go wrong. She looked like she didn't belong there. Too calm. Too quiet. Too still. Nurse Emma, the doctor on shift, called out without looking at her. Try to keep up tonight. This isn't a training ward. A few tired chuckles followed. Emma nodded once. Understood. No reaction. No irritation. Just acknowledgement. The doctor, Hale adjusted his gloves with exaggerated precision. His uniform was clean, too clean for a night like this. His badge hung perfectly centered on his chest, catching the light every time he moved. He liked being seen. Storms knocked out external transport, he continued. So whatever comes through those doors, we handle it here. No mistakes. His eyes flicked briefly toward Emma. Especially from new staff. She didn't respond. Didn't need to. Because something about him didn't sit right. She couldn't place it yet. He felt it. And that was enough. Then the doors burst open. Cold air flooded in like a living thing, carrying snow, wind, and urgency with it. Incoming trauma, a voice shouted. Boots hit the floor hard. A stretcher rolled in fast. And everything changed. 5 Navy SEAL entered with it, faces raw from coal, uniforms soaked through, movements sharp despite exhaustion. On the stretcher, one of their own. Blood soaked through white camouflage, spreading dark across his side. His breathing was tight, controlled, but barely. And beside him, the dog. A K9. Massive. Controlled power wrapped in muscle and instinct. But something about him was wrong. Too tense. Too alert. His eyes moved constantly, not scanning like a train unit. Tracking. Watching. Waiting. Get him on the table now, one of the med techs said. They moved fast. At the moment the stretcher locked into place, everything snapped. The doctor stepped forward, frowning immediately. What is that animal doing in my ER? He said sharply. The room stilled. The handler tightened his grip on the leash. That's Shadow, he said. He stays. This is a sterile environment, the doctor snapped. Remove him. The injured SEAL tried to lift his head, pain cutting through him. Shadow stays, he rasped. The doctor scoffed. Not in my hospital. And then it happened. Shadow lunged. No warning. No hesitation. A flash of movement, teeth, force, impact. The doctor shouted as the dog clamped onto his hand, dragging him sideways before releasing just as fast. Shadow, down, the SEAL roared. The handler yanked the leash hard. Shadow stepped back, but didn't retreat. His body remained coiled, low growl vibrating through the room. Eyes locked. On the doctor. Get that thing out of here, the doctor shouted, clutching his hand. But no one moved. Because everyone had seen it. That wasn't random. That wasn't panic. That was targeted. The SEAL team leader stepped forward, voice low and controlled. He doesn't miss, he said. The words hung in the air. Heavy. Uncomfortable. The doctor straightened, forcing composure. This is unacceptable, he said. That animal is a liability. The Shadow didn't look like he cared about liability. He looked like he had identified a threat. And wasn't finished. Emma stepped forward. Not quickly. Not dramatically. Just forward. Emma, don't, another nurse whispered. She didn't stop. She crouched slowly in front of the dog. Hand open. Palm steady. Shadow's growl softened but didn't disappear. His eyes flicked to her. Then back to the doctor. Then back to her. She followed his gaze. And saw it. Something caught between his teeth. Metal. Fabric. Porn. Carefully, she reached forward. Shadow didn't resist. Didn't snap. He let her take it. Like he had been waiting. Emma stood, holding the object in her hand. A badge. Military. Or at least supposed to be. She turned it slightly under the light. Water dripped from it. A faint smear of blood marked one edge. "Give me that," the doctor snapped, stepping forward. Emma didn't move. Didn't hand it over. She studied it. Her thumb brushed the edge. Something was wrong. Subtle. But wrong. The weight. The engraving. Too shallow. Too clean. Her eyes lifted. Met his. And for just a fraction of a second, his expression changed. Not anger. Not pain. Fear. Then it was gone. Replaced by irritation. "It's mine," he said. "Return it." Emma tilted it slightly again, examining the back. No proper stamp. No serial marking. Nothing that should have been missing was there. "This came off you," she said quietly. The room went still. The doctor forced a laugh. "Of course it did," he said. "Now give it back." Emma didn't. She looked at him. Really looked this time. And everything began to align. Too clean uniform. Too new badge. Too controlled reactions. Too defensive. Behind her, the seal on the table spoke again, weaker now. "Shadow doesn't do that." No one answered him. Because now, they were starting to understand. Shadow's growl deepened again. Low. Warning. And Emma realized something that shifted everything. The storm hadn't trapped them inside with the seal. It had trapped them inside. With him. She slipped the badge into her pocket. Not dramatically. Not secretly. Just gone. Like it mattered. Because it did. The doctor's eyes flicked to her pocket. Then back to her face. And this time, he knew. She wasn't just a nurse. And whatever mask he had been wearing was about to start breaking. Across the room, the storm slammed against the building again. Harder. Like it was trying to get in. Or keep something from getting out. Emma straightened slowly. Her posture unchanged. Her expression calm. But inside, everything had shifted. Because this wasn't just a medical emergency anymore. This was something else. Something far more dangerous. And she was the only one in the room who could see it clearly. Not yet fully. But enough. Enough to know. This night wasn't going to end inside hospital protocol. It was going to become something much bigger. And much harder to survive. Emma did not take the badge out again immediately. That was the first thing that separated her from everyone else in the room. Most people, when they found something suspicious, wanted to hold it up, announce it, force the world to react before they had fully understood what they were seeing. Emma had learned a different lesson a long time ago. When danger wore a uniform, the first rule was simple. Do not warn it that you've recognized it. She slid the torn badge deeper into the pocket of her scrub jacket and turned back toward the trauma bed, as if nothing had changed. But everything had. The injured SEAL breathing was growing more ragged. Gauze packed against his right side had darkened almost to black. One of his teammates pressed fresh pressure dressings into place with practiced hands, jaw locked tight, trying not to show the fear in his eyes. The team leader stepped closer to the bed. "How bad?" he asked. "Doctor." Hale flexed his bitten hand and scowled at Shadow before answering. "Bad enough that I need everyone out of my way," he said. "And I need that dog removed before I do anything else." The handler's face tightened. "Not happening." The doctor let out a sharp breath, almost a laugh, but without humor. "This is not a kennel. It's a hospital." The injured SEAL tried to shift upward again and immediately winced, face draining. "Shadow stays," he muttered. "Doctor." Hale ignored him. He turned toward the medication cabinet with the stiff impatience of a man trying to reassert control over a room that had stopped believing in him. That was when a man noticed his hand. Not the bitten one. The other. His movements were careful, too careful, as if he was protecting something inside his coat pocket from being seen. The old instinct in her sharpened. Predatory things always guarded the same three things first. Their exits. Their weapons. And their lies. "Nurse, doctor," Hale snapped without looking back. "Saline and 4 of morphine." Emma moved automatically, retrieving the saline bag, hanging it, checking the line with efficient, quiet hands. He did not reach for the morphine. Not yet. Instead, she leaned in slightly over the wounded man, adjusting the oxygen tubing. His eyes met hers. Pale from blood loss but alert. Disciplined. He knew pain and he knew threat. He was looking past her shoulder. At the doctor. Then he whispered, voice shredded but clear enough for only her to hear. That's not our doctor. Emma did not react outwardly. Did not blink. Did not even change her breathing. She simply adjusted the oxygen mask and murmured back, low enough to vanish under the beeping monitors. I know. His eyes sharpened. For half a second, there was something like relief in them. Then he hissed through clenched teeth as a wave of pain rolled through him again. Across the room, Shadow stiffened. The dog's ears angled forward. His body went still in a way that was somehow more dangerous than the growling had been. The handler noticed it too. Shadow, he whispered, trying to settle him. The dog wasn't looking at the patient anymore. He was staring at Dr. Hale. Dr. Hale opened the medication cabinet and reached inside. Emma's attention narrowed. His hand moved too fast over the shelves. Not searching. Selecting. That was wrong. A tired civilian contractor filling in for a storm shift doctor should have been checking labels, scanning trays, muttering dosages. He moved like someone who already knew exactly what he wanted. Carla, the senior night nurse, frowned from across the room. What are you pulling? She asked. Dr. Hale didn't turn. Pain management. Which one? That made him pause. Too long. Then, he answered too quickly. Ketamine. The team leader looked up. For a side wound? The doctor's jaw flexed. Are you questioning my treatment plan? No one answered. Because the real answer was yes. Everyone was. The room just hadn't admitted it yet. Emma watched his shoulders tighten. Then she saw it. A small glass vial, half hidden in his palm. Not hospital stock. Not military issue from the space either. Wrong shape. Wrong label. Too small. Too discreet. And the liquid inside wasn't right. Even from a distance she could tell. It had the faintest amber tint. Almost oily under the fluorescent lights. Her stomach turned cold. That wasn't pain medication. Not the kind this room needed. She stepped closer, carrying a tray she didn't need, making the movement look routine. Doctor, she said quietly. He glanced up. For the first time since the dog bit him, there was a crack in his performance. Not much. Just enough. His eyes checked her face, then her hands, then her pocket. He knew. He knew she had seen the badge. And now he was trying to decide whether she had seen more. Yes, he said. His voice was calm. Too calm. Emma held out her hand. Let me label, check before administration. A normal request. A harmless request. One any competent nurse could make. But his reaction was not normal. His grip tightened around the vial. You don't need to, he said. Carla frowned harder now. We always label, check. Dr. Hale forced a thin smile. Then trust me. That was the wrong answer. The SEAL team leader took one step forward. Show the vial, he said. The room went still again. Dr. Hale looked at him, then at the wounded operator, then back to Emma. The tension changed shape. This wasn't irritation anymore. This was calculation. Kind that happened right before someone stopped pretending. Outside, the storm hit the building so hard the windows rattled in their frames. The lights flickered once. Then again. A low electrical alarm chirped somewhere deeper in the building. Everyone looked up. Carla swore under her breath. Generators acting up. Dr. Hale spoke too quickly. I already checked it. That landed in Emma's mind like a pin dropping into place. Already checked it. Why? That wasn't his job. That wasn't even remotely his lane. He should have been worried about blood pressure, oxygen saturation, internal bleeding. Not generators. The fake badge in her pocket suddenly felt heavier. The room was no longer just compromised. It had been prepared. Her pulse slowed. That happened when training took over. Not panic. Pattern recognition. The kind that made the world go very quiet right before everything broke. The wounded SEAL breathing turned rougher. His hand found the side rail, then gripped it hard enough to whiten his knuckles. Doc, he rasped, eyes fixed on the vial. Don't. Doctor. Hale snapped his head toward him. Be quiet. The team leader's expression changed. That was it. That was the sentence that tipped the room. No physician with a dying operator on his table talked like that. Not to him. Not with that cold irritation. Not unless the patient was not, in fact, his priority. Shadow exploded into a deeper growl. Low. Continuous. The kind of sound that bypassed reason and hit instinct directly. Even Carla took a step back. The handler tightened both hands on the leash now. Something's wrong, he muttered. Emma moved one pace forward. Then another. No rush. No sudden motion. Her voice came out softer than anyone expected. What's in the vial? Doctor. Hale's mouth twitched. Medicine. His eyes never left hers. Then, almost too quietly to hear, he added. And if you touch me, you'll all be dead before morning. No one breathed. Not for a second. The sentence landed like a live wire in the center of the room. The team leader's shoulders squared instantly. One of the other SEALs shifted his weight, subtle but lethal, positioning for violence, if it came. Carla's face drained of color. Even the injured operator seemed to go still under the pain, his eyes suddenly wide and clear. Because now there was no more pretending. The storm outside was no longer the worst thing trapping them. The danger was standing under fluorescent lights in a white coat. And Emma understood, all at once, just how narrow the window had become. She could feel the room starting to tip toward panic. Toward shouting. Toward the kind of mistake people made when they were scared and armed and injured. That would get someone killed. So, she did the one thing no one expected. She lowered her voice even further. And took control. Everyone, she said. It wasn't loud. But it cut through the room with frightening clarity. The team leader looked at her first. Then Carla. Then the handler. Then even Shadow stopped straining for one impossible second. Doctor. Hale's eyes narrowed. Because her tone had changed. This wasn't the quiet new nurse anymore. This was command, level calm. The kind forged somewhere far away from civilian hospitals. And for the first time that night, he looked at her not as staff. Not as a problem. As a threat. Emma held out her empty hand. Still. Open. Put the vial down, she said. Her voice stayed soft. But the authority in it made every man in that room listen. Even the ones carrying guns. Even the one pretending to carry a badge. That was the moment the mask finally began to crack. Doctor. Hale did not put the vial down. But he also didn't move. That hesitation told a man more than any confession could have. Predators who still believed they controlled the room kept performing. They kept talking, bluffing, pressing for advantage. Men who paused like that. Men who suddenly went very still. Were recalculating. And recalculating meant they had just lost control of the equation. The room had gone so quiet that the wounded SEAL oxygen mask sounded unnaturally loud with every ragged inhale. The fluorescent lights overhead hummed. Somewhere in the walls, the backup generator groaned under the storm's strain. And in the center of all of it stood a man in a doctor's coat holding a vial no one trusted. Emma did not look away from him. Put it down, she said again. Still calm. Still measured. Not 1 ounce of panic in her voice. The team leader shifted half a step, just enough to place himself between the injured operator and the fake doctor. He didn't draw his sidearm. Not yet. But everyone in the room knew he could do it in less than a heartbeat. Shadow knew it too. The K9's body was rigid now, ears pinned forward, every muscle gathered and waiting. Doctor. Hale's mouth twisted. Interesting, he said softly. You don't sound like a rookie anymore. No one spoke. Because the sentence wasn't really for the room. It was for her. A probe. A test. Emma didn't answer it. Didn't defend herself. Didn't deny anything. She simply extended her hand 1 inch farther. Put it down. This time the fake doctor smiled. It wasn't a human smile. Not warmth, not humor, not even confidence. It was the smile of a man who had already accepted that he was going to stop pretending. You first, he said. His eyes flicked deliberately toward her scrub pocket. Toward the badge. Then back to her face. The team leader saw it. His gaze sharpened instantly. What did he mean by that? He asked. Emma didn't answer. Not because she couldn't, because there wasn't time. The fake doctor's bitten hand twitched once. And in that twitch, Emma saw the next move before it happened. He was going for something else. Hand, she snapped. The command cracked through the room like a shot. Not at the team. At Shadow. The dog launched before anyone else understood why. The handler barely had time to react. Shadow hit the fake doctor at the wrist just as his other hand disappeared into the pocket of his coat. The man screamed. The vial flew. It spun through the air, struck the edge of a supply cart, and clattered hard across the tile. The room erupted. One of the SEAL moved left. Another grabbed Carla and pulled her behind the nurse's station. The injured operator tried to sit upright with a groan that sounded like a wound being torn open. Team leader surged forward. But Emma was already moving. She dropped to one knee and caught the vial before it rolled under a cabinet. Fast. Precise. Instinctive. The fake doctor's face changed when he saw her holding it. That was the first real fear he had shown all night. "Give that back," he snarled. Emma ignored him. She held the vial under the harsh overhead light and read what little marking it carried. Her blood ran cold. Not because she didn't recognize it. Because she did. A tiny symbol in one corner. Small enough that anyone else in the room would miss it. But not her. Never her. She had seen that mark in another place. Another life. In clinics that weren't clinics. In supply boxes delivered under fake humanitarian labels. In rooms where men died slowly and were meant to look like accidents. The team leader saw her face change. "What is it?" he asked. Emma looked up. And for the first time since this began, there was something in her expression that wasn't merely calm. Recognition. Danger. "Not hospital stock," she said. "That's obvious," he snapped. "What is it?" Her eyes flicked back to the vial. Then to the fake doctor. Then to the wounded operator. And she understood all at once what the room had almost let happen. "This isn't sedation," she said quietly. The fake doctor laughed through clenched teeth, still fighting Shadow's weight at his wrist. "Very good," he said. The team leader's voice sharpened. "Then what is it?" Emma swallowed once. "Something that would have looked like respiratory collapse in a storm," she said. "Maybe cardiac failure if they wanted it cleaner, but not natural, not accidental, deliberate." Silence slammed through the room. The wounded SEAL hand tightened on the rail so hard his knuckles went white. He had known. Maybe not exactly what it was. But he had known enough to fear it. The fake doctor stopped struggling for a second and smiled up at him. "See," he said, "you should have let me work." The team leader's expression hardened into something carved from ice. "You were going to kill him." The man on the floor didn't answer directly. He didn't need to. Instead, he slowly lifted his other hand. And in it, a small black remote. Cheap plastic. A thumb switch. Compact enough to hide. Every SEAL in the room changed posture at once. That kind of movement didn't need translation. Threat. Immediate. Carla made a small sound in the back of her throat. Fake doctor looked from the remote to Emma. And smiled wider. "Everyone back," he said. No one moved. His thumb shifted slightly over the button. The lights flickered again. Harder this time. Somewhere in the building, a mechanical whine rose through the walls. A bad sound. The kind of sound infrastructure made when it was being forced to fail. Emma's pulse slowed even further. Because now she understood what he had done. The generator. The heat. The oxygen backup. He hadn't just infiltrated a hospital. He had prepared it. The team leader's jaw flexed. "What does it trigger?" he asked. The fake doctor laughed once. "Depends how much you enjoy freezing to death." Carla whispered, "Oh my God." One of the SEAL moved toward the wall panel instinctively, but the team leader held out one hand without looking. No one touched anything. Not yet. The fake doctor's eyes stayed on Emma. Not the armed men. Not the K9. Her. "You're smarter than they are," he said. Emma didn't answer. "You know what this is," he added. "You know what happens if I press it." Still, she said nothing. Because he was trying to pull her into a conversation she didn't want the others to hear. Trying to force recognition. Trying to expose whatever it was he thought he knew about her. The room could feel it now. The shape of some older history moving just under the surface. The wounded operator was breathing harder again. Pain and blood loss were catching up to him. His skin had gone paler under the harsh lights. He wouldn't last much longer without intervention. And the fake doctor knew it. That was the leverage. Not the room. not the storm. The man bleeding out on the stretcher. Emma stood slowly, still holding the vial. Then she placed it carefully on the counter beside her. Hands visible. Voice calm. "Okay," she said softly. The fake doctor's eyes narrowed. "Okay," he repeated. "No one's rushing you," she said. The team leader turned his head just enough to look at her. He understood instantly. She was buying time. But for what? Emma shifted her weight by less than an inch. Tiny. Almost invisible. A movement no civilian in the room would have noticed. Team leader noticed. Because men like him had spent their whole lives learning to read silent signals. He went still. Completely still. Emma kept her eyes on the remote. "If you hit that switch," she said quietly, "you don't just kill us." The fake doctor's smile returned. "I know." Her voice remained flat. "You kill him first." His eyes flicked just once toward the wounded SEAL. There. That was it. The smallest tell. The whole room missed it. Emma did not. This wasn't random sabotage. This wasn't just a fanatic trying to cause chaos. He had a target. A mission. Specific. And now she knew it. The team leader saw the flick too. "Who are you here for?" he asked, his voice low and lethal. The fake doctor didn't answer. But his eyes did. Not on the team leader. Not on the patient. On Emma. The room felt that. Like pressure dropping before a storm front hits. Carla looked between them, confused and frightened. "What is happening?" he whispered. The fake doctor's lips curled. Then he said the one thing that made every person in the room feel the floor shift under them. "You think she's a nurse?" No one moved. No one breathed. Even Shadow went silent. The fake doctor looked straight at Emma, and his voice dropped into something almost intimate with hatred. "She's the reason 47 men never made it home." The sentence hit the room like a detonation. The team leader's face changed first. Then the wounded SEAL. Even Carla, who understood none of the context, recoiled from the force of whatever history had just entered the room. Emma did not move. Did not defend herself. Did not deny it. But her fingers curled once at her sides. A tiny motion. Restraint. The fake doctor saw it and smiled wider. Because now he thought he had found the one wound in the room deeper than the bleeding man on the stretcher. And he thought. Wrongly. That he could use it. The room didn't breathe. Not after that sentence. 47 men. The number didn't belong in a hospital. It didn't belong in a civilian conversation. It carried weight history, something buried and classified and never meant to surface under fluorescent lights. Team leader's grip tightened on the edge of the bed. "Explain that," he said. The fake doctor didn't look at him. He kept his eyes locked on Emma. Because whatever this was, it wasn't about the SEAL anymore. It was about her. Emma stood perfectly still. No defense. No reaction. No denial. And that silence told the team leader more than any explanation could have. Because guilty people rush to speak. Trained people don't. The fake doctor let out a slow breath, almost satisfied. "I thought you were dead," he said to her, "left behind like the rest." Emma's voice came quietly. "You should have stayed buried with them." That did it. That single sentence shifted the room completely. The team leader's eyes narrowed. The injured SEAL stopped fighting the pain for a second and just stared at her. Even Shadow's posture changed, less aggressive now, more focused, like the dog understood the threat had just evolved. The fake doctor's smile faltered. Just slightly. "You remember," he said. Emma didn't answer. But now. She stepped forward. Not like a nurse. Not like staff. Like someone stepping into a situation she understood far better than anyone else present. "You're not a doctor," she said. The words landed clean. Sharp. "You're not military," she continued. "Not even close." The man on the floor let out a breath that almost sounded like a laugh. "No," he said. "I'm not." The team leader moved half a step closer. "Then what are you?" The man's eyes flicked to him briefly. Then back to Emma. "A courier," he said. Silence. Emma nodded once. That confirmed it. The vial. The badge. The sabotage. It all fit now. "You weren't here to treat anyone," she said. "You were here to deliver something." The man's smile returned. "Exactly. The team leader's voice dropped. To who? The courier's eyes shifted again. To the wounded SEAL. And that was enough. The team leader's expression hardened into something cold and final. You picked the wrong target. The courier laughed weakly. No, he said. I picked the only one that mattered. The wounded SEAL tried to push himself up again, anger overriding pain. You don't even know who I am, he growled. The courier's eyes flicked toward him. Oh, I know exactly who you are, he said. That's why you're still breathing, for now. Imaz's gaze sharpened. That sentence wasn't just threat. It was timing. This wasn't supposed to happen like this. The dog had disrupted something. Her presence had accelerated it. He was improvising now. Which meant he was more dangerous. The remote in his hand lifted slightly. The mechanical whine in the walls deepened. The vents above them coughed once. Cold air slipped into the room like a warning. Carla wrapped her arms around herself instinctively. She whispered. The team leader glanced toward the panel. We need that system back online. No one touches anything, the courier snapped, thumb tightening on the button. Or we all freeze right here. Imaz didn't look at the panel. She looked at him. You won't press it. The courier smiled. You sure about that? Yes. Why? Imaz tilted her head slightly. Because you're still inside. The room went dead silent. The courier blinked. Just once. It was enough. That truth hadn't occurred to him in the chaos. Or he had dismissed it. But now. It was real. If he triggered a full shutdown, he died too. The team leader caught it instantly. His posture shifted. Not aggressive. Not yet. But ready. You don't want to die here, he said quietly. The courier's jaw flexed. No, he admitted. Then put it down. The courier hesitated. Just for a second. But in situations like this, a second was everything. Imaz moved. Not toward him. Away. Toward the wall panel. Stop, the courier snapped, raising the remote. She stopped. Immediately. Hands visible. Relax, she said. I'm not shutting it down. His eyes tracked her every movement. Then what are you doing? Keeping us alive, she replied. The team leader watched her closely now. Because he could see it. She wasn't guessing. She wasn't stalling blindly. She had a plan. Imaz crouched slowly near the panel. Her eyes scanned it once. Fast. Efficient. The wiring. The overrides. The failure loop. And there it was. Exactly what she expected. This isn't a shutdown system, she said quietly. The courier's eyes narrowed. What? Sabotage loop, she said. You're not turning things off. You're forcing them to fail. The team leader stepped closer. Can you stop it? Imaz didn't answer immediately. Her fingers hovered over the panel. Then. She nodded once. Yes. The courier's voice sharpened. You touch that and I press it. Imaz didn't look at him. You already have. That confused him. Just for a second. What? She glanced back over her shoulder. You triggered it when you powered the loop, she said. This is just the delay. The team leader understood immediately. He's already started it, he said. The courier's grip tightened. Stop talking. But it was too late. The room had shifted again. He had lost control of the narrative. Now he was reacting. And reacting meant he was losing. Imaz's hands moved. Fast. Precise. She pulled one connector. Twisted another. Reset a bypass that no civilian nurse should have even known existed. The alarm changed tone. Lower. Less urgent. The vents coughed again. This time. Warm air followed. Not strong. Not stable. But enough. The room exhaled as one. Carla almost collapsed against the counter. Oh, thank God. One of the SEAL whispered under his breath. How did she? The team leader didn't finish the question. He was staring at Imaz. Not with confusion anymore. With recognition. Because he had seen movements like that before. Not in hospitals. In field units. In places where survival depended on people who knew systems better than manuals ever could. The courier saw it too. And for the first time, real fear entered his expression. You weren't supposed to survive, he said. Emma stood slowly. You weren't supposed to get this far, she replied. Team leader stepped forward. Now there was no hesitation. Drop it, he said. The courier looked at the remote. Then at Emma. Then. He laughed. Weak. Breathless. But still defiant. You think this is over? He said. And then, from outside the building, a new sound cut through the storm. Engines. Multiple. Heavy. Approaching fast. Every head turned toward the entrance. Through the swirling snow outside, lights appeared. Bright. Cutting through the whiteout. 3 vehicles. Military. But not theirs. The team leader's expression darkened instantly. That's not us, he said. The courier smiled again. There it is, he whispered. Shadow's ears snapped forward. Alert. Not aggressive. Recognizing something. The seal moved instantly. Positions. Angles. Weapons ready. The hospital transformed in seconds. From medical space to defensive ground. Carla backed into the corner, shaking. The injured seal gritted his teeth, trying to push himself upright again. Emma stepped to his side. Adjusted the pressure on his wound. Her voice low. Stay with me. His eyes locked onto hers. Who are you? He rasped. Emma didn't answer. Because she didn't need to. Not yet. The doors slammed open. Cold air flooded in. Boots hit the floor. Heavy. Controlled. And a voice cut through everything. Sharp. Commanding. Where is Emma Hart? The room froze. Because that wasn't an enemy voice. That was authority. Real authority. A figure stepped into the light. Older. Battle, worn. Presence that didn't need introduction. A Navy SEAL commander. His eyes scanned the room once. Then locked onto Emma. Everything in his expression shifted. Relief. Recognition. Something heavier. Emma, he said quietly. The courier's smile disappeared. Because now, this wasn't his operation anymore. This was something else. Something bigger. Something he had just walked into. The commander stepped forward. And his next words landed like a verdict. She wasn't assigned here as a nurse, he said. Silence. Every person in that room felt it. The shift. The truth surfacing. The commander's gaze never left her. She was placed here, he continued, to make sure none of you died. The team leader went still. The SEAL on the stretcher stared at her. Carla's breath caught. And Emma finally looked away. Not from fear. Not from guilt. But from something far quieter. Something that had never needed recognition. Because she had never been here to be seen. Only to do the job. And now, everyone finally understood what that job really was. No one in the room spoke. Not after that. The commander's words still hung in the air, heavier than the storm outside, heavier than the smell of antiseptic and blood, heavier even than the armed tension now stretched from one end of the ER to the other. She was placed here to make sure none of you died. That sentence didn't just reveal something about Emma. It exposed everyone else. Their assumptions. Their jokes. Their certainty. The team leader slowly turned his head toward her, disbelief and calculation crossing his face in equal measure. He had spent years reading people under stress, under fire, under interrogation. He knew what competence looked like. And suddenly everything about her made sense. The stillness. The economy of movement. The way she never wasted words. The way she had taken over a room full of armed men and panicked staff without ever raising her voice. Doctor. Hale the courier, not a doctor, was still pinned under Shadow and one of the SEAL, but the confidence had drained from his face. His earlier smirk was gone. Whatever game he had been playing had just shifted into a level far above him. The older commander stepped further into the ER, snow still clinging to the shoulders of his dark parka. He carried rank the way some men carried scars permanently. His eyes moved over the room once, absorbing every detail. The injured operator on the bed. The improvised defensive positions. The remote on the floor. The fake vial on the counter. The dog. And finally, Emma. You're late, she said. The line was quiet, almost flat. But it hit the room like another revelation. Because no one spoke to that kind of authority like that unless history gave them permission. The commander exhaled once through his nose. "Storm grounded our first route," he replied. "You still breathing?" "Yes." "Anyone dead?" "Not yet." That exchange changed the room more than any formal explanation could have. No salute. No panic. No attempt to explain herself. Just the kind of clipped, unadorned communication shared between people who had seen enough together to no longer need ceremony. The team leader's voice came next. "Sir," he said carefully, "who exactly is she?" The commander looked at him for a moment. Then at Emma. She didn't answer for herself. Of course she didn't, so he did. "She's the reason 3 extraction teams came home from a valley no one was supposed to survive." Silence. The wounded SEAL on the stretcher stared at her like the pain had momentarily stopped existing. Carla looked like she had forgotten how to blink. Team leader's jaw tightened. Because now the shape of the story was changing. Not a rookie nurse. Not a lucky civilian. Not someone who happened to know a few unusual things. Something else. Something military had buried. The commander continued. She served in a classified recovery and trauma support detachment attached to special operations assets overseas. A beat. She was declared dead. The words landed softly. But the impact was brutal. The team leader looked at Emma again. Declared dead. And still here. Still doing rounds. Still getting mocked over charting speed and shift assignments. Still carrying saline bags and taking orders from people who had no idea what they were standing next to. The courier laughed weakly from the floor, blood on his lip. "Tell them the rest," he muttered. "Tell them what happened to the 47. The room tightened again. The commander's eyes shifted to him. And in that gaze was something old and merciless. "Careful," he said. The courier smiled anyway, because fear had finally driven him into recklessness. "She left them," he said. "That's what they called her over there, right? The one who walked out when the others didn't." The words were poison designed for maximum damage. Not to reveal truth. To weaponize pain. The team leader's expression changed, not because he believed the courier, but because he knew enough about war to understand that survival itself was often twisted into accusation. Emma still said nothing. Her hands were busy. Adjusting the wounded SEAL pressure dressing. Checking his pupils. Monitoring his breathing. Because that was who she was. Not a woman defending herself. A professional keeping someone alive while other people tried to drag the dead into the room. The commander took one slow step toward the courier. "You're still alive," he said, "because she decided to keep you that way." The courier's grin twitched. Then disappeared. The commander looked at the team leader. "Secure him. Full search. Every seam, every pocket, every stitch." 2 SEAL moved immediately. They rolled the courier harder onto his side, stripped his coat open, searched with brutal efficiency. And they found more. A second injector pen. A ceramic blade hidden in the lining. A coated paper strip sealed in plastic. And something that changed the room all over again. A small laminated access card. Not hospital issue. Not military issue. Infrastructure. The team leader held it up. "What is this?" Emma glanced over once. "Sublevel utility access," she said. The commander's face hardened. The team leader frowned. "This place has a sublevel?" Carla answered before anyone else could. "There's a lower maintenance floor," she said, voice shaky. "Generator controls, oxygen reserve, emergency backup. Some old storage. We barely use it." Emma's eyes locked on the card. And then on the courier. He had not come here just to poison one operator. He had come to compromise the entire facility. The commander saw the same conclusion arrive in her face. "What did he wire?" he asked. "More than the heat," she replied. That changed everything. The team leader cursed under his breath. One of the SEAL at the door shifted his rifle. "You think there's more inside?" Emma nodded once. "Yes." The commander looked at her. "How much time?" She checked the wounded operator's breathing again before answering. "Depends what he already armed." The courier laughed softly through a split lip. "Too late," he said. Shadow growled. "Low. Murderous." The commander crouched down in front of the courier, old knees bending with the kind of control that made the movement more threatening than force ever could. "Listen carefully," he said. The next thing you say determines whether you leave here in handcuffs or in a body bag. The courier's eyes flickered. He believed him. Good. But he also believed he still had leverage. You won't shoot me, he said. Not while the system's still primed. The commander held his gaze. No, he said, but I know someone in this room who can make you wish I had. His eyes shifted not to the team leader, not to the dog. To Emma. The courier's face changed. For the first time, the idea truly landed on him that the quiet nurse he had underestimated was not just dangerous because of what she knew. She was dangerous because she had survived him once already. And people like that were hard to intimidate twice. The commander stood. Emma. She looked up from the wounded operator. Can he be moved? He asked. Her eyes tracked the side wound, the drainage, the skin color, the oxygen line. Then she shook her head. No, not far. He's compensating, but barely. If he crashes now, he won't make the stairwell. The team leader's face tightened. So we clear the building around him. The commander nodded. Then looked back to Emma. What do you need? Again, that question hit everyone in the room. Not what happened. Not explain yourself. What do you need? Because unlike everyone else here, he understood what she was. And what mattered. Emma answered immediately. Carla. Carla startled. Me? Yes, Emma said. You're with me. Carla blinked hard, trying to keep up. Okay. Seal his side wound with another pressure layer. Not tighter, just broader. He's bleeding around the packing. Carla moved instantly. Because even if she didn't understand the woman in front of her anymore, she trusted her. Emma turned to the team leader. I need one of yours on airway support if he drops. Someone who won't panic. The team leader nodded toward one of his men. Walker. A broad-shouldered operator stepped in immediately. Emma pointed to the oxygen. Watch his chest rise, not just the monitor. If his left side stops lifting evenly, tell me before the machine does. Walker nodded once. Yes, ma'am. That word slipped out before he could stop it. And no one in the room missed it. Not even him. He didn't correct himself. Because now he understood. The commander looked toward the sublevel access corridor. I'm taking 2 down, he said. Team leader stepped forward. I'm coming. No, Emma said. Everyone looked at her. She didn't raise her voice. Didn't soften it either. You stay here. The team leader stared. Why? She met his gaze. Because if this is layered sabotage, then the second strike won't be mechanical. He understood immediately. Human attack. Diversion. Compromise from inside. He looked at the front entrance. At the wounded operator. At the courier. And he nodded. Understood. The commander watched that exchange carefully. Then he looked back at Emma. You still trust your instincts? He adjusted the wounded SEAL Roman 4 flow without looking up. I trust the dog. That nearly made the commander smile. Nearly. Shadow, as if hearing his name without hearing it, lifted his head and stared toward the back corridor. Not the front. Not the courier. The rear utility hall. Emma saw it too. And every nerve in her body went cold. Because the dog wasn't tracking memory anymore. He was tracking present danger. And whatever had come in with the storm had not come alone. Shadow's growl changed. Until that moment, every sound he had made had been directed at the courier, warning, aggression, identification. This was different. Lower. More focused. Not anger. Tracking. His ears angled toward the rear utility corridor, the one that led past storage, oxygen reserve, and eventually to the maintenance stairs down to the sublevel. The whole room felt it. The shift. Team leader turned first, rifle rising instinctively. Movement, one of the SEAL whispered. No one answered. Because no one had seen anything. But the dog had. And everyone in that room had enough experience with death to know one thing. If a military K9 went that still, that focused. You listened. Emma looked at the commander. You're not going down there yet. The commander followed Shadow's line of sight and nodded once. No, he said quietly. We clear what's above us first. The courier laughed weakly from the floor. Too slow, he muttered. Team leader planted a boot harder between the courier's shoulder blades. Try me. The courier coughed blood and grinned anyway. He still believed he had something in motion. That meant Emma's instinct was right. This was layered. Redundancy. Sabotage backed by personnel. Exactly the kind of operation built by people who expected professionals on the other side. And whoever had sent him knew this place would be isolated long enough to finish the job. Emma's attention snapped back to the wounded SEAL. His breathing had changed. Subtle but wrong. Too shallow on one side. She stepped in immediately. "Walker," she said. The operator beside the bed looked up. "Lift the blanket." He did. She pressed 2 fingers just below the rib line, then listened to his chest again. The commander was at her shoulder in one step. "What?" "Possible hemothorax progression," she said. "Blood's collecting in the chest." The team leader swore under his breath. "Can he hold?" Emma looked at the patient. His skin was pale now, lips beginning to lose color. He was trying to stay conscious through pure force of discipline. Not enough. Not for long. The room tightened again. Because now the threat had split. A hostile somewhere in the hospital. A compromised building. And a dying operator who might not survive the next 10 minutes. The commander's eyes locked on Emma. "What do you need?" Again. Not because he didn't know. Because he trusted her answer more than anyone else's. Emma didn't hesitate. "I need a chest tray, sterile tubing, local anesthetic, suction, and one person who can hold him down without breaking his ribs." Carla froze for half a second. Then moved. Because she understood enough to know what that meant. A field chest decompression in a failing hospital during an active threat scenario. Not standard. Not safe. Not something a rookie nurse should even suggest. The team leader looked at her sharply. "You're putting in a tube here?" "Yes." "Can you?" That question came out harder than he intended. Not insulting. Terrified. Because his man was dying. Emma met his gaze once. Then looked back to the patient. "Yes." That was all. No explanation. No credentials. No speech. Just certainty. And somehow that was more convincing than anything else in the room. The wounded SEAL opened his eyes, pain making his voice raw. "What's happening?" Emma leaned close enough that only he could hear her. "You've got blood building around your lung," she said. "I'm going to give it somewhere else to go." His jaw flexed. "Sounds unpleasant." "It is." A weak, breathless ghost of a smile touched the edge of his mouth. "Good," he whispered. "Means I'm still alive." Emma's expression didn't change. But something behind her eyes softened. "Stay that way." Carla rushed back with the tray, hands trembling. Emma took one look and began arranging instruments with frightening speed. The commander turned to the team leader. "You hold this room." The team leader nodded. "Walker stays on airway. Reese with me." The rest locked down the rear corridor. The operators moved instantly. Positions shifted. Angles covered. The hospital corridor transformed again from treatment space to tactical hold. Shadow remained planted near the utility hall, body low, every muscle ready. The courier watched all of it with narrowed eyes. And smiled. That smile bothered Emma more than the threats had. Because it meant he still believed the room was behind. She pushed the thought away. One problem at a time. The patient first. She snapped on sterile gloves. "Local," she said. Carla handed it over. The patient's breathing hitched harder as the pain sharpened. The team leader stepped closer to the bedside. "You sure about this?" he asked quietly. Emma didn't look up. "No," she said. That startled him. Then she added, "But I'm sure about what happens if I don't." That was enough. Walker positioned himself at the shoulders. Another SEAL moved to stabilize the patient's hips and left arm. The commander stood at the foot of the bed, watching the corridor and the procedure at the same time. Because that was what nights like this demanded. 2 wars at once. Emma palpated the side of the chest. Found the intercostal space. Counted once. Twice. Then cleaned the site with swift, efficient movements. The wounded operator looked at her through the pain. "You done this before?" Emma's hands never paused. "Yes." "How many times?" She didn't answer. Because the truth would have sounded inhuman under fluorescent lights. And she was not here to become a story. She was here to keep him breathing. "On my mark," she said. Walker tightened his grip. The patient braced instinctively. The commander's voice came low from the foot of the bed. "Hold." Emma inserted the anesthetic first. Minimal. Fast. Then took the scalpel. The room seemed to narrow around that tiny blade. No one moved. No one spoke. Even the storm outside felt far away for a second. Incision. Controlled. Clean. Then the blunt dissection. The patient groaned through clenched teeth, body trying to arch despite the hands holding him steady. "Stay with me," Emma said. He did. Because there was something in her voice that made men stay. Then she inserted the tube. A second later, dark blood rushed through. Immediate. Violent. Necessary. The patient's chest hitched once. Then expanded. Deeper. Cleaner. The oxygen monitor climbed. Walker stared at the numbers. His sets are coming back. Carla's eyes widened. The team leader exhaled a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. The commander looked at Emma. Not surprised. Just confirmed. Because he had expected this. Expected her to do what no one else in the room would have dared. And do it right. The wounded SEAL coughed once, then managed a weak laugh that dissolved into pain. "Okay," he rasped. "That was terrible." Carla let out a short, disbelieving breath that was almost a laugh before fear swallowed it again. Emma secured the tube, checked the seal, adjusted the drainage. Her movements remained steady. No triumph. No relief. Just the next step. Because she knew better than to celebrate while the danger was still inside the building. And that was when the rear corridor lights went out. Half the hallway behind Shadow dropped into darkness. The dog exploded into barking. Not warning now. Engagement. Everyone in the room turned at once. A metallic crash echoed from the utility hall. Then footsteps. Running. Not one set. Two. Maybe three. The team leader snapped his rifle up. Contact rear. The operators moved like a single machine. The commander drew his sidearm. Carla froze at the counter. Patient tried to push himself upright again, and nearly tore his own line out. "Don't," Emma snapped, forcing him back down. The courier laughed from the floor. "Told you." Shadow lunged toward the dark corridor, leash jerking violently in the handler's hands. And Emma felt that old cold certainty settle into her chest. Courier had never been the whole operation. He had only been the front door. The real attack had just arrived. If you want this story to continue getting darker, deeper, and more intense, hit subscribe right now and comment "Shadow knew first" if you're still watching.